Okay, good evening, everybody. Hope we're all doing well. Hope we're all good. Hope you start of your week. Rest of it. The end of it. Hope you can hear me. Just let me know, as always, whether or not you can. Hey there, Stu, Mo, and Adam. Good to see you. Just trying to wait to see if it actually says that they can hear me before I start rattling on. So, what are we going to cover tonight? Well, basically, it's going to be jumping around a bit. I'm going to cover all the things that kind of go through. The real focus today is just where we are with the sentiment, as the thumbnail kind of sits. So that greed, and I'm not necessarily saying that's a bad thing. I'm see as I'm going to go through the call a little bit later on, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to topple over right now, but this is definitely a very bullish time in the market, and with that comes some opportunities which hopefully we'll take advantage of, but also potential advanced learning lessons, what it's going to be like at the end of the probable, how we can start to get a bit of a feel maybe when we're starting to get towards the top. So we're going to have a look through that. We're going to sort of go over some things, got some questions as well, and yeah, cover up some tokens. All I got to say, guys, is people are saying a bit louder. Okay, I'm going to move my mic. I've got people saying loud and clear, and then people saying a bit louder. Not sure if it's my connection or your guys, but let me know if you can hear it any better now. I will have a look. It's going out a bit, not getting half of some of the sentences. Better. I think maybe what might have happened is I might have had my mic a bit too far away, which is unusual because it usually can get there. But I'm going to crack on. I will be continually having a look. So if it is bad, just keep on full caps lock, and I will see it. I promise you. Welcome everybody into the chat, and yeah, let's just jump straight in. So we've got the chart at the moment. I mean, Bitcoin's price. We're going to go over this in quite a lot of detail a little bit later on. Screen on. That's full to work. The old-fashioned one. Okay. Sorry, my Stream Deck decided it wanted to update. So anyway, clicked it that way. So you got the charts in front of you. You can see Bitcoin. We're currently just under 44,000. Now you just think about that. We were starting at the beginning of this year, and we were down at 15, 16,000. If someone had told me that we'd be 3x that value by 12 months later, I probably would have told them. Well, I'd certainly have asked them what they're smoking, budge themselves. But that is where we find ourselves at the moment, and we have been ripping it for the last 7 or 8 weeks at the moment. We're going to go into that in a lot more detail, as we always do, a little bit later on. All of these have moved along. Sorry about that. So with the dollar, the dollar had dumped down a few, but it has started to pull back from that 1025 level. Ethereum's finally made that move we talked about last week. It had that period of consolidation. I still think the next level for that is going to be around about 25,000. But we will still getting the sound. Okay, sorry, I'm going to try and sort this one out. Let me just quickly have a look at where that is. So just bear with me a second, everyone. Get everything up. Make sure the connection's right. Mic's as loud as it can. I mean, it's right in front of my face, which I don't normally have, so it can't be a gate issue. See what I'm going to do. Just start it again. Let's see if just the old classic on and off switch helps that there. We'll have to have a look. But just let us know. As I say, I'll keep on checking. And apologies for that. You haven't missed any of the good stuff yet, I promise. Yep, so Ethereum's made that move up. A very strong move from a period of consolidation around about 2,000. I still think we'll go into it later on. That 2,500 seems to be the next logical step for that. What has captured me is Casper. So Casper's, unlike everything else which has started to move up, Casper's been consolidating now. It must have been off and on. I mean, bloody hell, classic IT tech solving there. But going back to Casper, yep, it's just been consolidating. I don't see this as a bad thing. Casper much like the rest of the market, but even actually more extended for months now, has just been ripping it. And it's actually quite nice to see it consolidating around these areas, just building that. So for the last few weeks, it certainly has been moving in and around sort of, I don't know, about 15 cents down to about 12 and then back again. So interested to see where that one goes. We'll have a look at a lot more altcoins a little bit later on. But I'm going to jump into some of the smaller news stories at the moment, just to try and cover them, because we didn't give them much time last week or the weeks coming. So we mentioned about Kraken and the SEC trying to upset the apple cart, trying to upset that bullish momentum by filing another lawsuit against Kraken. Now, I'm not going to go into it. We talked about it last time. The point I'm trying to make here at the moment is, now that people have actually gone through the lawsuit, which I won't bore you with, but you can scroll down, click on this and look at it yourself. It's almost a carbon copy of the lawsuit that they issued out to Coinbase earlier on this year. Why is that an issue? Well, actually, a lot of the points that were highlighted in the Coinbase lawsuit can be actually taken all the way back to the Ripple lawsuits and some of the findings we had there on the securities. So it does potentially feel like the SEC is just rolling out the same old lawsuit, potentially a losing lawsuit, the same as that, just because they're being petulant. I don't know. The article goes on to talk about how, it's very narrow-minded, the fact that they're trying to pigeonhole cryptocurrencies, digital assets, in the same basket as traditional stocks and securities. It's just lazy and they need to come up with another way. But we're already starting to see a bit of fight back for once with these lawsuits. It's good to see. I know Kraken at the beginning of the year, they rolled over fairly quickly with just paying their fine. Hopefully they're going to have a bit of teeth in this one. Another one that's quite interesting, and it's an exchange I don't use anymore. I used to use them quite a lot, but I think it's worth tipping our hat to them. Crypto.com. So they have been working with the regulatory agency in the UK. That's the FCA, the Financial Conduct Authority, and they now have a license to operate as an electronic money institution. Now, it doesn't matter, okay? You don't need to know what an EMI is. I just happen to know it because my wife works in anti-money laundering. And so, yeah, I understand that kind of stuff. But it's actually to say that an exchange that I haven't really given much time of day to, they have been working with the FCA to sort of like try and get a legal foothold within the United Kingdom. And we all know, those of us that are based in the UK, how troublesome it can be with sort of the FCA and the banks and sort of that negative spin on cryptocurrency. But actually, if we can get an exchange, an institution, a crypto institution that is, rubber stamped approved, not quite approved by the FCA, then hopefully that's going to soften some of the approaches that the banks may have. And so I'm not saying it is a good on or off ramp at the moment, but steps like this are a very positive way, certainly for Crypto.com. Hopefully others will be able to follow suit. Tether, USDT. Now, how many times is Tether going to implode? That headline. And it probably as many as Bitcoin. But we've talked about Tether quite a bit this year because we've had a lot of FUD around stable coins. Obviously, how end of last year ended and even the beginning of this year with the banking crisis and USDC and everything else. But Tether, who up until this year had been pretty secretive in terms of how they come up with the amount of money that they claim that they have backed one for one. I think their market cap's around about 90 billion at the moment. So in theory, they should have that backed one to one. Now, they've started to open up a little bit on this, and this isn't particularly new news or anything like that. But what is interesting is part of Tether's portfolio, if you will, is actually holding Bitcoin itself. And they currently are sitting on an unrealized profit, because they haven't cashed it in, of around $1.1 billion solely on their Bitcoin alone. And you can see they own 57,000 BTC at an average price of 22,000. So they've done pretty well there. Now they have other, they are backed by cash as well. We have other investments. One of the ones that this article goes into is NVIDIA, which NVIDIA has done very well as well. And they also own some of the NVIDIA graphics cards, so they're undertaking some of the mining side. Well, it won't be mining Bitcoin because it'll be GPU, so the wrong kind of graphics card for it. But here we can see, well, in bear markets at least, we always get the Tether. But actually, if we dig a little bit deeper, we can see with some of the investments that they've made, whilst the markets are doing well, they are also doing well. So, you know, hopefully a positive spin, certainly a positive news article in the direction that we're heading. And you know, green is the themed color for today's talk. So interesting to see the Bitcoin as green. That's not Bitcoin Cash. It is Bitcoin. So, I mean, let's start talking about some of this price action, because it's fantastic to look at. Those of you that have portfolio trackers like Delta or use CoinMarketCap to track your portfolios, you're not human. I don't think you're a real crypto investor if you're not checking that a couple of times a day when the markets are green. I mean, I rarely even log on to mine when the markets are red. I don't want to know how bad the portfolio is. But right now, the portfolios are looking very healthy. Everything seems to be doing very well. And it's just intriguing. And you know, you can't help yourself to move back in. And that recent push, I mean, this article was only a couple of hours ago, and they were talking about 42,500. We already know we've actually hit 44,000 today, just under. But a 19-month high, you rewind back 19 months. What are we talking about? We're talking about probably pre-lunar crash. So yeah, and you know, an impressive show of strength from Bitcoin to get back up there in what is, let's face it, not a particularly long piece of time. Back in sort of middle of October, we were around about 25,000, and so you know, we have gone nearly $20,000, nearly 100% in the space of 2 months, which is incredible. And I think this is, you know, just a taste of what it's going to be like in a full bull. I do remember the sort of that transition period, end of 2020 into early 2021, when Bitcoin was just ripping it. And we, you know, 20,000 was a previous all-time high. We burst through that within a matter of days. We were at 40,000. It's kind of feeling a little bit like that. Yes, that happened a lot quicker, but that was full bull mode. But I want to talk about this article here and the choreographed Bitcoin whale move, because it is quite interesting talking about suspicion of market manipulation, because one of the things I talk about quite a lot are market makers and how they manipulate the price of the market. They're not bothered about sort of the news. They're not even bothered if, you know, Bitcoin's a good asset going up or down. They want the volatility. And potentially the order book is suggesting that there might be some market manipulation which is driving the price of Bitcoin up. So as we come down here, data from Cointelegraph Market Pro and TradingView shows a BTC price rebound, taking BTC to highs of 42,000, which obviously we know it's higher than that now. Beating the 19-month peak set the day before. Okay, as Bitcoin continues to reclaim ground lost in mid-2020. However, warnings over the rally sustainability continue to flow in. These center on the behavior of large volume traders, or known as whales. In a dedicated thread, which I've got up and I'll show you in a moment, about the phenomenon on X, Trading Resource Material Indicators, that's the account, explain that from the order book liquidity queues, it appears that these traders could be deliberately coordinate higher prices in order to sell into an uptrend with minimal slippage. Why is that important? Because for the last year, all I've talked about is market makers. If the price is going up, they are selling into that, okay? So they are driving the price up, sort of working off fear, FOMO, certainly, working off greed, but they're offloading at higher prices. And the more liquidity available near the intended selling point, the better value a major sell-off would bring. We saw the exact game over the weekend with a 50 million buy wall at 35,000, and it often works. Now we have a 50 million stacked at 38,500. So what he's saying is basically if you go into the order books, which I don't have Trading Light anymore. I wish I did just for this one news article. But there you can see the order books. I mean, we could go onto Binance and actually just count it out ourselves. But effectively, there's a 50 million wedge, which is just appearing at certain levels. So it was at 35, and then they moved it to 38. And basically, people who follow those are sort of suggesting, oh, people are getting a bit greedier. They don't want to sell yet, so they're going to keep on slowly moving up. People are thinking it's still bullish, driving the price up that way. The analysis reasoned that a return to 38,500 was unlikely, but that the new blocks of bid liquidity, including one at 41,500, were not organic. I think I might have missed a bit out there, but so you can see that they just keep on putting this 50 million in somewhere, and then they're removing it and just moving it higher, and they just keep on stepping it up. And for any of you that do follow, I do recommend him, Traders Reality, Tino. He was the kind of the guy that introduced me into the market makers method. He's very good at it. Even this video here today, which he did, just watch the first 5 minutes. It talks about, not about that news article, but very much about what I've just talked about. He sort of talks about when you see, you know, price moving very quickly, what you'll have is you'll have sort of buy walls and sell walls introduced into the market, but they're ghost ones, because as the price gets close to it, they just disappear off the order books. And it's just to incite the price moving in whichever direction they want it to be. As I say, a lot of analysts are looking at this at the moment and they're saying, well, wait a second, it does seem very choreographed, very coordinated, that these are coming in and just driving that price up and up and up. Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't unusual behavior. This happens all the time. It's just people are starting to pick up on this. Talks about the with BTC liquidity strategically moving around the game board, we are likely to see this rally extended. And I think that's a key point we're going to talk about at the moment. You know, the market can remain unrational or irrational longer than you can remain solvent or liquid, or however you want to phrase that. So, you know, just because we feel that the sentiment is greedy doesn't necessarily mean that the market's going to dump the very next day. So let's have a look at this article. So this is it, material indicators he goes through here. Now, I'm not going to necessarily go through all of the different firewalls or anything like that, which he uses, because when you click on it, it's very hard to see the detail. And if I try and zoom in for you, you're not going to see it. So you're either just going to have to go and have a look at this guy's Twitter profile himself and then sort of be able to zoom in on your own, or actually have a look at the charts, how he's done it. But he goes into the detail about how placing these buy walls outside of the trading zone can steer the price in a certain direction, and all the different screenshots kind of show you exactly where the buy walls are and then them getting removed and everything else. So it's an interesting way of looking at it. It's something that we've talked about in the past, but it might help explain why, whilst we've been talking about, you know, we drastically need a pullback for the health of the price action, we're not getting it at the moment. And maybe market makers are capitalizing on, one, FOMO, but two, the greed of the average investor. And we're very herd mentality. You know, if someone sees something shiny and good, starts talking about it, then others just happen to follow in. And that's comes to the same with the Bitcoin. We all know the old stories, the old adage, the last bull runs. Whenever your taxi driver, your hairdresser starts asking you about Bitcoin, you know it's a time to get out, because suddenly that part of the herd has finally caught up. I'm taking everyone can still hear me okay at the moment. So we'll sort of circle back onto Bitcoin's price a little bit later on. Something else that's kind of made the rounds today, and I know it's made it into the Discord chat, but we talked last week about BlackRock, and we use the term BlackRock, we use the company BlackRock, but really that's just a blanket, if you will, for all of the ETF applications that have been made by a variety of different companies. But for argument's sake, we're going to go with BlackRock. And actually now what we're starting to see is that BlackRock have been buying or opening up opportunities for their clients to Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies since the middle of last year, since 2022. And so GREED-O-MANIA, who spotted and posted this. Now, I don't know if it was necessarily private before today, because certainly when you go on BlackRock's website, it's clear as day there, so you can see it. But oops, wrong one. There we go. It goes in just to sort of say that they actually have been buying Bitcoin throughout the whole of the bear market and using a private trust to do that. Now, what I talked about last week with whether or not they were using the reach and the shares that they have in all of the mining companies to maybe do some OTC deals, or actually, and I showed you a Bitcoin chart. I'm sure I can bring it up relatively quickly if I can find a clean one. If I can find a clean one. There we go. Volume. That's all we want, isn't it? Sorry, I should have had this one prepared for you. I just want volume. And I want this to be... It's never simple, is it? Kraken, Binance. Look. No, I should have got the Coinbase one up because I know, but you can just see what I talked about is all the way through the bear market, summer of 2022, the volume for some reason was massively up. So maybe that's when the institutions were buying. So again, it's more speculation. It's more click. I don't want to say it's clickbait because I do like what Geo posts, and I'm sure he's not doing it for clicks and engagement, but it's that kind of still that very bullish narrative at the moment. I mean, you can't scroll through Twitter without tripping up 5 or 6 spot ETF approved in the next few days tweets, and certainly you can't on YouTube either. So that's what I mean by that whole greed focus that we've got at the moment. Everything is very much focused to all of the positive news that is potentially coming, but ultimately we actually don't know that spot ETFs are going to be approved in January. There's just basically a foregone conclusion by the community that is the case. We know it's not the deadline day. Deadline day is actually in March. This is just a window in which they can be approved. So yeah, you can go through here. Now there's a couple of things that say why I said the middle of some of the benchmarks they've used is end of July 2022 when they're talking here. So that's why we think it's I think it's summer 22. Might have been earlier, I must admit. But you know, everyone is talking about the spot ETFs. I'm missing an article. I'm going to stumble across it later on, aren't I? Anyway, it doesn't matter. But it's not just the spot ETFs which are potentially buoying the market at the moment. Next week is an incredibly important week in announcements. Now, during the bear market in the beginning part of this year, when inflation was running rampant and interest rates were incredibly high, we watched CPI announcements, PPI announcements, and the FOMC federal rates with a eagle-eyed. But last couple of months, I know they don't happen every month, but last couple of months, where we've started to see those cool off and everything resetting down, we haven't given it as much focus as we have. It doesn't mean that they're not as important. So we've got two really important things happening Tuesday and Wednesday next week. CPI, so we want to see whether or not the inflation rate is continuing to fall as it has been. And then we roll into Wednesday and we've got the federal fund announcement. Now, it currently sits at 5.5%. What's interesting is for the better part of the year when we had the pause, if you will, we were always told that actually we've probably got one more hike left this year. We haven't had it yet. This is the last one of the year. So are we going to finally get that hike? Or is there sufficient evidence to suggest we don't need to? We can either pause. Now, they didn't say they were going to drop it until 2024. But we shall wait and see whether or not that happens. But again, this kind of information is definitely going to help provide a bullish outcome to the market, assuming that CPI goes down and the federal fund rate either drops or remains as it is. If inflation goes up and the fund rate goes up, then I think that will have, at least in the short term, a negative impact on those things. So definitely something to keep an eye on then. But then I picked this one article, and hopefully you can kind of feel that I'm building towards a crescendo here when we're talking about sort of where we are in GREED-O-MANIA. And we have this, and this is sort of classic kind of clickbait, if you will, articles that we get, and you can see how this escalates in a moment. So we've got an X account, Bitcoin LFG, breaking news, Max Kaiser, reports of rumors that Qatar's sovereign wealth fund has entered the Bitcoin market and could be interested in purchasing up to 500 billion worth of BTC. Wow, there's so much to unpack from this, but let's try. So first of all, Matt Kaiser, who is he? He's just another he's an OG Bitcoin enthusiast. He's got a large following on Twitter, don't get me wrong, but what ins he has with the Qatari finance minister, etc., I've no idea. But worse still, it's only reports of a rumor. And it goes on, sort of chosen words very carefully here, has entered the Bitcoin market. So apparently they have already bought on this rumor, but they could, as in they still have to make a decision, be interested in purchasing up to 500 billion. So, what do we really get from that? So I thought I'd go and check the source. And on Matt Kaiser's Twitter, I couldn't actually find it himself. I just found him reposting Bitcoin news picking up on this. Hi there, Jean, how are we doing? And quoting exactly the same thing. And I was just like, well, wait a second. The person that's being talked about himself hasn't even, maybe he has, and he just posts so often I couldn't find it. Fair enough. But I do find it interesting, the choice of the words that they used. But then we get, so we've just seen here, Bitcoin News pick that up with how many followers do they have? Nearly 100,000 followers. There's plenty of other news articles I did. I just clicked on this one because it was the first one on the Google search. But here we've got Altcoin Buzz, another news online news article saying exactly the same thing. eyeing up 500 billion Bitcoin investment. They basically cite exactly what we've just talked about there. But it gets even crazier than that. And I've stressed this for months, really. You know, whenever you see these kind of things, just please take the 30 seconds to just see whether or not what they're saying is actually true. And in 30 seconds, I was able to at least get to the bottom of this. So we know there's a Qatari sovereign wealth fund. So I just thought I'll Google it. I mean, why not? And here it is, the Qatari Investment Authority. So I've clicked on that. This is it. You can go into its detail and have a look at it. I won't bore you with any of that. Then you click on here. So the Qatari Investment Authority, or the wealth fund that they're all talking about, its current assets is 475 billion. So that's all they have. So what's happened here, obviously, is they've gone, okay, this investment firm has assets worth 500 billion, but then they've decided to go 2 + 2 and equals fish and go, oh no, they're looking to invest 500 billion's worth. Well, they're never going to do that. They're not going to liquidate their entire portfolio at the moment and then just go all in on Bitcoin. So even if they are going to do it, it's going to be a portion of this amount. Still positive. I'm not trying to sort of say that it isn't at all. This isn't me trying to be a perma bear or anything like that. It's great news if they are interested. But I'm just trying to sort of, I don't know, just teeter us back a little bit, just so we don't get wrecked. I mean, too much hopium can really flush you out. So doing 30 seconds worth of digging, we can kind of see that actually the maximum that they had, and this is as of October this year. I think it says it in here somewhere. Maybe it's a bit further down. But I assure you, this is of October this year. So maybe it has gone up slightly, of course. So maybe that's where the 500 comes from. But the reality that they're going to liquidate those entire positions and then just put it all into Bitcoin, I would say is slim to none. But these type of articles, you know, they are there to induce, excuse me, the FOMO of the retail traders. Jesus, the Qataris are going to move in with $500 billion. Imagine how much that's going to push up the market cap. I better buy my Bitcoin now at 42,000. Because when they buy it, it's going to go up to 70. You know, that kind of mentality. And it's these kind of news articles that keep on coming out. And what do we see when we go to things like the Fear and Greed Index? I mean, we're at 75 at the moment. You know, 74 yesterday, 78 last week, 70 last month. You know, we're slowly ticking up. Excuse me. And we just move it up and up and up. And you can kind of see when we look on this chart, I'll show you a cleaner one in a moment. But we're at the right hand side of this. And we're at levels that we haven't seen since the peak of the last bull run in 2021. So, you know, we're getting to very, I was going to say overbought, but extreme greed areas. Extreme greed, typically, you know, that old saying, you know, when there's blood in the water, buy, and, you know, when it's super greedy, sell, or paraphrasing. But it's true. It's absolutely true. And this doesn't overlay with price very well, but you can kind of see points of very greedy around about the summer of 19, which is when we got to 14,000 before the drop back down. Then you have a look at how, you know, Uber ate fear right at the bottom of the pandemic crash. Then you come back up and you kind of see the stuff. So this was December. This was when Bitcoin went on that massive rally on its way up to the first 60 odd thousand. But it had a bit of a cooling off period. Then we get into the sort of the winter rally. And again, it falls away. So just checking 75. I'm sure I saw 75 there. That's because it's just not very good. So yeah, but let's have a look at a better chart of this. I've gone on to the look into Bitcoin, which I talked about last week. Now, guys, this is as good as it's going to get. I will zoom in a little bit, but it's very counterintuitive to use, and I can't put it on dark mode. So you're stuck with staring at the white, bright lights. So you can kind of see just on the bottom bar, hopefully, we've got the different colors, and we're at 75. So if we get to 76, we're in extreme greed. Okay. So periods of extreme greed before. So we have this Fear and Greed Index only goes back to 2018. So we can only go off really the last two bear markets and this bull market that's just been. But we can kind of see that run up to 14,000. We got into extreme greed and then it cooled off. And then you can see an extended period, as we talked about, when Bitcoin really ripped it up through previous all-time highs, all its way up to 41,000. We had extreme greed again. And then we just saw a bit of extreme greed right at the top of the market back in November 2021. And we've not seen it since. So when we tip in, we know we're on borrowed times. We know at some stage someone is going to, I say someone, those in the know, those that move the price, are going to take advantage, are going to capitalize on Bitcoin's euphoria and look to move the price. Because again, you remember, they're selling into this uptick. They're selling into our greed, okay? And then they'll move the price back down and they'll set their long positions on the price on the way back down. When we're now panic selling out, they're the ones that are buying it off us for cheaper. So just bear that in mind as we go through. Now, what I would like to say is just because we turn into extreme greed doesn't mean you need to sell your bags immediately. And that's why this isn't an indicator for trading. This is just something you can look back on and go, that's where we were. And what I mean by that, well, if we look at sort of 2019, we went into extreme greed on, what's that, 16th of June? But we had until the end of June, so a couple of weeks really, of just extreme greed as it built up. We cooled off a bit and then we had a little bit more. So about a month, really, 3 weeks of extreme greed before it really fell away. So as I say, just because tomorrow, if tomorrow turns out to be 76, which if the price stays as it is, I would expect it to go up again, doesn't mean that it's over straight away. So you've got to also bear that in mind, that the market can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent. So we've got to bear that in mind. If we look at what it was in a full bull, now this was months of it, because the euphoria behind Bitcoin's price. So it started beginning of November. It didn't really end till almost the end of February. So we're talking, 4 months there. Yeah, there was a little bit of a drawdown, the pullback, because on this one, Bitcoin did have a healthy pullback. It went from about 42,000 down to about, I think it was either 33. It's a fairly decent correction on the way up, something we've not had yet. But this allowed that to cool off a little bit before, again, momentum just moved it all the way back up. So we've just got to bear that in mind. And we'll have a look at sort of how that works out with price action a little bit later on. But if I just double click outside, as I see, we got to this stage here and we've just been in that greed zone for a long time. And I think people have just got used to it now. We just expect price to continue to go up. We've seen on other metrics, we're certainly overbought and momentum is topping out in terms of bullish momentum. So there's definitely an opportunity or a tipping point on the horizon, how long it's going to take to get to that tipping point, and then most importantly, how far that tipping point goes down before picking back up momentum. We just don't know, certainly not from looking at these charts. Don't know what this next one is. And then we have other news articles. So look at this. Bloomberg predicts fresh crypto super cycle will push Bitcoin to 500,000. Anyone got a calculator to save me doing it? It's 20 million Bitcoin in circulating supply. What's going to be the market cap of Bitcoin there? A lot. So yeah, I mean, it's what, 10 trillion? Quick maths, I think. So this thinks that Bitcoin alone will be a $10 trillion market cap. Now, if you believe that, and you also use Simon's figures for things like CAS and Tau and the others, imagine what that's going to be. I mean, we're talking about an overall market cap. If Bitcoin's around about 30% of probably 15 trillion, that's like 3 times greater than his most pessimistic. But the point I'm trying to make is I've seen numbers like this at the peak of the last bull run. They were throwing these numbers out as if it was going to happen. Now, I've not read the Bloomberg article itself, so I don't know where Bloomberg got this figure from. And Watcher Guru is not the most reliable, but it's not just them. You go on YouTube, type in 500,000 Bitcoin, and even if you just did a search for the last 7 days, you're going to find 20 videos on this because everyone's using that number now. It's a scary number to be using, but we're starting to see those numbers. And why are we seeing it? Because it's driving FOMO. Bitcoin's going to get to 500,000. I can 12x. I'll just buy a full Bitcoin now. Stop Christmas for the kids. I'll just buy it. I mean, those are kind of figures that drive people to get into the market because it's a no-lose situation. And then what happens? The market makers who probably created this news article just push the price on the way back down. So just be careful with those. And then, yeah, we get, I did like 500K BTF approvals in the search, and we get the memes. We get people posting about their huge gains that they have. talk about how ETF approval is going to bring in trillions of dollars. You can scroll down. It's just constant. Now, I'm one. You see me in chat. I'll put a little comment in there. We just broke 44,000 or whatever it is. Mainly because some of you may not be looking at the charts. God, I don't know how you're not looking at the charts all the time. But these kind of things do worry me in the sense that people are just getting overexcited. People are forgetting how hard crypto can sometimes be. And that just feels to me like we're going to get a rude awakening at some stage. But yeah. But we're not far off the halving, are we? I mean, it's only 4 months away, 4.5 months. 18th of April, they reckon it'll be at the moment. And now it changes every day, it changes every hour. Matter of fact, I bet it's changed now. 132, so it's 16th of April. So, but we're not far away is the point. And people, again, very excited about that. They're starting to bring in the fact that the halving, whatever you want to say about it, is going to also factor into why the price is going to go up. Now, I buy into that. That scarcity, that reduction down from 6.25 to 3.125, I think will, in the end, also lead to the price of Bitcoin going up because there's less of it liquidly available. I don't know what word I'm trying to use there. So I do, but we've got 4 months till that happen, and every other cycle has seen some form of correction. So, it's not there. But the biggest thing that everyone's talking about is the foregone conclusion of the spot ETF approvals. Now, to be clear, there's a window. The window is the 5th to the 10th of January. And there's a little bit of an outlier here, actually, because ARC21 got theirs in before BlackRock. And so theirs is an actual finite decision that needs to be made. I think it falls slightly after this window, but the window for all the other ones is within those 5 days. But it actually isn't really 5 days because the 5th is a Friday, Saturday and the Sunday is the 6th and the 7th. Not going to really approve it. So I think we'll either get it on the 5th if it's happening, and we'll get something. It's either an approval or a delay or a rejection, or we'll get it on the 8th, 9th, or 10th. But how many days is that? So it's 132 to the halving, and it is 31 days to then. So, that's, I think, is helping at the moment with that FOMO. We're less than a month away from potentially trillions of dollars being enabled to enter into the market. Whether or not it's already in the market doesn't really matter. The narrative that's being pushed is less than a month, guys. And before you know it, by the time you've had all your Christmas pies and you've stuffed your face at Christmas, it's going to be January and it's on our doorstep. So they're trying to incite that FOMO and that drive in now to get it going. That's just my opinion of it, but I'm just it just smacks a little bit to me. It just smells a little bit fishy. We've been talking about a healthy correction for a while, and I just do feel like the bullish narrative is so strong at the moment that something's going to happen, but we just don't know when. And that's the reality. And I think the point I'm trying to make, and I promise you we will get into the charts a little bit later on, is if you're trading this at the moment, if you're day trading, if you're leverage trading, derivatives trading, which I'm not particularly doing right now, there's no reason to move away from the bullish narrative. Absolutely not. We don't know when it's going to change, so you might as well run with the trend whilst it's doing that. And it does seem to be a lot of strength within this narrative at the moment. So there's no necessary reason for you to suddenly go super bearish. Absolutely not. The trend is your friend, whatever saying you want to throw out there, until that breaks, and we'll have a look at some indicators or some kind of things that might give us an indication of sort of a topping pattern at least. I'd be continuing to look more favorably towards longs than I would the shorts. I don't know what you guys think in terms of, whether or not you are caught up in it and you're trying to rummage through the couch to try and find, or sofa to try and find, some more pennies to buy stuff. If you're quite happy, just sat on the sidelines and just watching your portfolio grow, but you've noticed that you're looking at your portfolio a hell of a lot more. It's an interesting time that we find ourselves in, and I've been in it a couple of times. And if this is your first time, trust me, I've been caught out in it. I was caught out in it a couple of times. It's going full ball, absolutely. So I just have suppose, the war wounds from previous mistakes that just say it's great and I'm enjoying it, but I'm also nervous that the correction is going to come. Now, I'll be honest, my intention at the moment, because I'm not trading, is I probably won't sell anything. We'll get onto a little bit later. I might see how some of the newer tokens I bought, like Dynex and Tau and potentially CAS, although CAS I still think they've got a pretty decent entry, do, and then think, all right, well, I'll take a bit of profit and I'll buy back, because, you know, they're very relatively new. But the stuff I've been DCAing in for the last 12 months, I just don't see the point of it right now. Not until I just stick to my plan and my targets, which, yeah, hopefully it'll work that way. I haven't forgotten about the poll. So if you haven't voted on it yet, what will Bitcoin hit first, 50,000 or 35,000? We're pretty much 50-50 at the moment. But if you haven't voted on it, please do. And when we get to the price targets a little bit later on, I'll give you my views of where I think it will go, where it could go, and what might happen first. Okay, let's move on to, let's just move this up here. Just move this on to, I'm going to tackle a couple of the questions. And Chris, thank you for the questions. Chris, I'm not sure if you're in the chat, but if you are, just stick your hand up, because I'm going to ask you a couple of questions a little bit later on. So I'll be quick, as quick as I can with some of these, and then we'll get into the charting itself. So, hi, thoughts on this project? New project from 2022 on some big exchanges, and then it's Aurora. So, Chris, if you are in the chat, when did you hear about Aurora? That's what I'd like to know. So, yes, I know of Aurora. Matter of fact, back when we did the Near Protocol video beginning of this year, I think we touched on Aurora. I don't own any, but, and this is, so it actually launched in 2021, so you were pretty close. But look at this. I mean, at one stage, I don't know how, but it went all the way up to $36, and that wasn't like a day one launch $36. This shot up, and it's now at 50 cents. So, you know, when I did the video back in, I think it was around about February or May or March, you know, we're talking around about 22 cents. You know, although I'd known of it, it just wasn't anything that I was particularly interested in at the moment. But let's just have a quick look at what it is and what it does. So effectively, Aurora is it's a layer 2 smart contract, if you will. I'll go onto the website. So the next generation Ethereum compatible blockchain and ecosystem runs on the Near protocol. Powers the innovations behind the Aurora crowd, the fastest path for Web 2 businesses to capture the value of Web 3. So, in a nutshell, I don't want to go into this being a full research token because I haven't really done it any justice to be able to do that. But this is not a blockchain in itself. This is a layer 2 built off Near, which is obviously its layer 1. Now, its biggest selling point is it is an EVM compatible smart contract. What does that mean? So effectively, it has the capability that anyone that's written anything on the Ethereum blockchain, they can then convert that over onto the Near. So, you know, those that might think Ethereum is particularly expensive. Do I have any views particularly on it? No, not really. I've not really looked at it. I was just aware that it did exist. I am a huge fan of Near, as you know. Got a very healthy bag of Near. I've not really diluted into any of the other ones. I mean, I'd have to have a look at it. It'd have to be something really special to sort of like dilute my Near holdings just to go into this. I mean, I don't want to do it any disservice. I'm sure it is particularly good. But, you know, if it's just a smart contract that, you know, its main selling point is it's an EVM, they feel like they're a dime a dozen. They may not be on the Near blockchain. I completely get that. But I'm more happy just holding on to the Near itself. There is like a white paper, wiki document type thing, which you can go through if you're interested in. And if you're really, really interested, you can add it to the list. The tokenomics, I mean, the tokenomics are fairly decent. There's 1 billion tokens that have been generated. And you can go through here in the lockups, but we're about, I can't remember where we are now. I think we're about here. Well, let's just go 388 million. I can't click on this, guys, unfortunately, to zoom in. I'll zoom in this way. So we're about here, but you can actually see It is a gradual release. I mean, this is 135 months until all 100 billion are out. So although we're only about 40% of the tokens circulating, it's not like it has a rapid dumping of tokens. In fact, you know, you add 24 months onto where we currently are, we're going to be around about 600. So it's about another 200 million to be released over that time. I don't think that's the worst token. Let me just zoom out again. It has somewhere down here. No, it must be a different token. I don't know what the vesting periods are for each of them. I'd have to have a look into that. But yeah, I mean, the reason I asked Chris when you found out about it, because although this doesn't look like much, let's see what's happened over the last couple of days. So on the 3rd of December, it was 15 cents and it shot up to 65. So it basically 3x'd, 4x'd overnight. And it was in a single day. And suddenly this is, you know, herd mentality I talked about, something new, something shiny that's absolutely pumped up. Well, everyone's jumped on the bandwagon of this one. And if we just try and find it here, let's take it off that, put it on the daily chart. Let's get rid of volume. You can kind of see. Now, for me, this is just screaming a pullback. And we've actually already seen that pullback happen. It actually did get to 71 cents. But I feel like that pullback is absolutely needed. I think, you know, realistically, I'd be expecting a pullback to around 30 cents minimum. I don't know what caused this pump to occur. If there's some big news or something else that might have driven the price. But yeah, that feels like there is something there that nearly just drives that past. So, Chris, it looks like you're not in the chat, you're not responded. But I don't know if it's come on your radar today because of this pump or if it's something you're really interested in. Then you've asked me to have a look at Beam and a zero, which I will try and do for you. I'm sure I won't do them justice. So Beam, I know from the community side of things, Simon and a few others have bought into Beam. I've not. Don't own any Beam. It is a gaming sector token. It's effectively a gaming blockchain. So, you know, it's a layer one with the capability of you to be able to build games on those. Now, that is the kind of thing that I would like to get into. This sounds very much like Immutable X to me, which again I did a research token on a few months back. So yeah, this is something that I would be interested in. I just haven't really got around to looking into it. What I can tell you is I utterly hate this UI. Because you click on the website, this is it. I don't even know if I want to find out information. I don't even know what to click on. So I was bumbling around in the dark a little bit. So there's some of the games that available there. So Illuvium, people have probably heard of. Big Time is another one that is doing quite well. If you want to build on it as a, you know, this is when I went to have a look at the documents, I was hoping for like a white paper or a wiki doc type thing of it, but no, it's just basically a how-to in building on Beam, which doesn't really help me, especially when I'm trying to do research. I thought I had another page open which at least had some details on it, but I seem to have lost it. So I like it. It's in a sector that I want to get involved in. It's ticking the narrative that I want to look at. I'm not interested in individual games unless they have, you know, a really unique selling point, unrealistic, you know, how can I put it? Very competitive graphics, gameplay, etc. You know, to compete with non-blockchain games, because otherwise I just, you know, can't see that mass adoption. I think for me, things like the Axie type games where it's just like, you know, naff graphics and you're turning over a card and you're basically playing top trumps, not for me. But the fact that this is a blockchain, a gaming blockchain in which you can build them, then I need to check out the tokenomics and understand how you're utilizing the token. But that certainly seems something that's a lot more attractive. That in terms of that, so where am I? Lost myself. In terms of, is it Aleph Zero? A0. So this is a layer one blockchain. And again, it is next up. So the injective video is filmed. I'll probably try and get that out tomorrow. So it is technically the next one up. So I'm not going to really talk about it too much. All I will say, I've lost it, is yeah, it's a layer one blockchain. I don't want to say. Okay, I'll give the game away. I thought it. It's a bit meh for me. I'll be honest. Like, I haven't fully looked into it, But from what I've seen, I don't, I've got so many, well, I've got a fair few layer ones. I don't see what this is offering, which is going to make me decide to dilute my layer one portfolio any further. You look at some of the simple videos that they've put out, and it's talking about solving the trilemma. I mean, I thought we're beyond that now. We need something else other than that. There's a bit more unique, bit more wow factor to it. So in terms of from a chart point of view, which I forgot to do for Beam, so I will go back to that. Find the chart, which had them all on. So let's have a look at Beam first. So I'm going to take Beam off the daily, because the thing about Beam is it's new. Now, it's not really new because it actually just rebranded over. So, but this chart is relatively new. But if we look at this, sorry guys. Try it this way. So I want to at least have some moving averages and everything on there. I mean, it's, we're down on the 4 hour now. I think, it's had an explosive start, so don't get me wrong. People will be gutted that they potentially might have missed out because they saw it at 5-6 cents. But actually, in terms of the start that it's had had pullbacks. It's had decent pullbacks to reset the price. Okay, the last couple of days, it's only really been flirting with the 5 and the 10, but we have had a little dip down towards the 50 EMA cloud at least. So, I don't think it's too bad. It's just over a cent at the moment. I should have talked about in terms of the tokenomics. I'm sorry, I'm getting them a bit confused. I'm going to do 3 of them. So circulating supply we're about 75% of circulating supply out at the moment. So, there's not too much to go. I can't find in the documents anywhere as to what the vesting schedule is for the rest of that. So I don't know how long it's going to take, but at least a fair chunk of it is already out and circulating around. And if this is one that you believe in, I actually don't think, yes, okay, I do believe there's an overall correction coming. So, go into this with that now, that idea in your head. If Bitcoin corrects, it's highly likely the vast majority of altcoins are going to correct and likely correct harder. So, you might enter at the bad price. But I do feel that, if this is a project that you truly believe in, getting in at 1 cent now, because you're going to hold it for the next 2 years in a bull market with gaming on a platform, on a blockchain, a gaming blockchain in which people can utilize that. I think for me, that feels like that, that has legs. It has a narrative behind which I could support. So I do think it could go up. Now, it's hard to say from, a TA where it can go because it's so new. It's not even been around 2 months from this charting side of things. So I can't really offer too much there. But if we have a look at, I thought I had this on. I obviously don't. A0. Let's get Maxi chart up. So have a look at this. We've obviously got a lot more information on this. So again, with Chris, it's had that positive move up that we've seen for the rest of the crypto market. But what I like is it's had its pullbacks. And so if we get in a little bit closer, we've had the pullbacks back to the 50 EMA. That's good. For me, that always gives you the warm and fuzzy. It's busted down through it. Then we've had a lovely double bottom off that. And now what we're doing is we're fighting the bum line, if you will, the double bottom and the 50 EMA, and where the 50, the 5, and the 10 are all providing support for it at the moment. So assuming that Bitcoin either stays status quo or moves up, I see this one moving up as well. If Bitcoin dumps, as I said, all bets are off with the rest of the altcoins. Highly likely that they're going to go back down. Now, where could it get to? Well, let's just drop it back to the daily. I mean, even on the daily, if you look, 5 and the 10 on the daily, they're such powerful, and they really are. Most tokens you'll see follow the 5 and the 10. And it's exactly what this one's done. And as soon as it loses the 5, the 10's gone and caught it. But it is consolidating. A bit like what ETH did before that one moved back up. We're taking from there to there. It's come down, corrected off this one nicely. I mean, it's in no man's land at the moment, so it could well re-attack that. I mean, if it does lose it, and I'm thinking the whole of the market dumps, I suppose the 2 areas I'd probably be looking at initially would be those 2. That's quite a big area, I get that. You may be falling all the way from 134 down to $1, but depending on how hard Bitcoin falls, if Bitcoin falls 20%, alts are probably going to fall 40, 50. So yeah, there's certainly some element there. But Chris, I hope that one helps. I've seen some of the questions in the chat, guys. I'm not ignoring them, I promise. Well, I'm ignoring them for now, but I'm just trying to get through these. Okay, then you've talked about, so thoughts on BlackRock et al. Are only currently or in the future will be buying Bitcoin directly from the miners or OTC deals. Then this will not show up on CoinGecko, CoinMarketCap, correct? Okay, so in that hypothetical scenario, if BlackRock et al. Only and only did OTC deals, and that would be an OTC deal with the miner as well. I'll go into what an OTC deal is in a moment. Then yeah, I mean, it doesn't go through the exchange. It's not on the order book. Now, I don't know how CoinGecko and CoinMarketCap work. I just assume that they effectively have API feeds to all of the exchanges. That then either they have like a preferred exchange which dictates what the price is, or they just take an average, a global average of the majority of them. So yeah, if you're not putting an order, whether it is a stock, a security, an asset, or Bitcoin, or any other cryptocurrency, if you're not putting it through an exchange, if it's not going through an order book, if you're just doing it as a private sale, P2P almost, or B2B, I suppose, then yeah, it won't move the price on those exchanges. If so, and the plan is that the ETF to make, on average, say 50% profit a year, then surely this would mean that any rallies in price would still be retail driven. I don't know why you got 50% profit a year. I don't think 50% profit a year is realistic for ETFs. I might be, please, if someone in the chat knows more about them than I would, 20% would be pretty amazing, I would assume. Now, we've talked about whether or not this will be the last super cycle. And I'm not saying a 500k super cycle. I'm just talking about a volatile cycle. Because once institutional money comes in, once the market cap for Bitcoin does get, large, $10 trillion, whatever ridiculous figure they want to throw out there, it is going to be hard to move that price, especially as you've got to remember that the circulating supply of actual exchangeable, purchasable Bitcoin is just going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. Then yeah, now when retail come in, they'll be forced to have to pay a higher price to convince someone to sell of it. So of course it's going to move it. But I think by then, if we're getting such a large market cap, I don't think it's going to necessarily move it. Now, will it still be retail driven? I would suggest, we talk about market makers. We talk about these companies that don't care where the price is. Likes of BlackRock. Now, again, I don't know the legal structure of how an ETF looks, but I assume they come with their own set of rules. And so, they're going to have to be very clear on how they trade the Bitcoin that's within each of their ETFs. But bearing in mind that they are going to be, and when I say they, I mean all ETFs, a significant, market maker, market mover, they may want to drive the price up and down so that they can capitalize on playing the other sides of those. And so I still see the opportunity for them to move the market. Whether or not we see, we already see every cycle Bitcoin, is getting less and less and less. 26,000% first cycle, 3,000% second cycle, 300% the cycle before. So we're already seeing that it's starting to flatline. And yeah, I think that's probably still a possibility. Ultimately, we don't really know. We as mere mortal retailers, we'll just never know how it's going to be. It'll be one of those things that we can analyze afterwards, and then maybe take that knowledge into the next cycle we dare dip our toe into. But yeah, I'm not sure, Chris, unfortunately. I'll answer the bottom one. I'm assuming the Bitcoin Tesla currently owns were bought as an OTC deal. I have absolutely no idea. I don't know. So if the Qatari or the Saudi royal family or any big corporation buy Bitcoin and add it on their balance sheets, this is most likely done as an OTC deal. But this doesn't move the price on CoinMarketCap. It's kind of a similar case. And I don't know if they're going to do it OTC, but just to clarify, an OTC, I'll put it up here, but basically, whether it is crypto, whether it is in a more traditional market, it is effectively a private transaction between two parties. So they set the terms, they set the price, and they set the medium of how the asset is going to be transferred. So now, there are exchanges that offer OTCs. They have OTC desks. And you'll be surprised, it's not actually as you think whales have to do it. It's not. I think Kraken is $100,000, which, okay, might be a lot for some of us. but that's not particularly whale amount of funds. Now, why do institutions like doing OTC? One, it's private. Okay, so I know Bitcoin has some sort of transparency, some sort of anonymity to it, but it's not fully anonymous. Okay, and with these corporations, they will have to declare some of these things to the likes of the SEC and the board every 3 months with all of that. So I get it, but it is a private transaction that can happen at the time it's happening. You don't have to make any announcement for that. Also, they're typically probably going to buy a large amount. So if you wanted to buy 500 Bitcoin and you put that in, it's very unlikely on Binance that there's one seller that's selling 500 Bitcoin. So what's actually going to happen is your purchase of 500 Bitcoin is going to be split over a multitude of sellers. And so the first part of your purchase, you may get at the market price. But as those dry up, you're going to have to move the price up and up and up to sellers that are, a bit more stubborn and don't want to sell at the price that you originally went in for. So you're going to get slipped, and that's what slippage is. Sorry if I'm teaching you to suck eggs here. But that is one of the reasons why, big corporations and maybe royal families would prefer to do it OTC. I'm trying to think of, sort of any other reason there. But because, as I said, because it doesn't go through the order book at the time of the transaction, the value of the deal is not known, because it's private. It's not on exchange, not on an order book. They don't have to declare it initially. And so, no, as I said before, I don't believe that would get back onto CoinMarketCap. Now, let's take an absolute extreme example. Let's go back to what we talked about last week with BlackRock holding significant shares in a lot of mining companies, and potentially maybe they were buying at the beginning of the year. So at the beginning of the year, Bitcoin was $15,000 or thereabouts. But the average cost to mine a Bitcoin was around about $21,000. So for every Bitcoin they mined, they were already losing $6,000. Now, I do have time to have a look at it. Potentially, I might do afterwards. If you have a look at the likes of Riot or Marathon or Hut 8 or any of those, they've all done very well over the last few weeks, because when Bitcoin price goes up, their prices go up. But they have a lot of debt. These are companies that have a lot of debt on their books, and those debts are recorded. And I mentioned that Traders Reality video earlier on in the stream, and he went on to have a look at Marathons. They've got $206 million worth of debt. Okay, that's corporate debt, if you will. Now, interest rates go up; those companies are going to struggle. That's another story. The point I'm trying to make is, okay, so at the beginning of the year, when we think institutions were potentially buying, the price of Bitcoin was very low. It was lower than the average cost to mine a Bitcoin. So there could well be an occurrence there where actually either the likes of BlackRock had these companies over a barrel, and they were like, actually, I want it even under. I'll buy a load of Bitcoin off you, but I'm not paying you $21,000 that it cost you to mine. I'll give you 17 grand. It's $1,000 over what the current market rate is. But that potentially didn't move the price. Now, the volume data that we saw from Binance suggests that there were people doing it through exchanges. So that, we don't know, unfortunately. That's the whole point of it, I suppose, I'm trying to get at. But in that extreme example, BlackRock could have said, we'll buy it for $1, and because it didn't go through a book, the price of Bitcoin wouldn't have moved for that instance. You put that you're trying to buy or you're selling your Bitcoin on Binance for $1. That's going to hurt when you accidentally click the accept trade, because someone's going to snap that bad boy up pretty damn quickly. But for that fraction of a second, in theory, that was the last traded price of Bitcoin, so it could spike down. And we have seen that on Binance US when it was at 60 odd thousand and it spiked down to $8,000. So yeah, right. Let's have a look at some of the other questions. I just want to roll to the top and then see where we're at. Best staking for ETH and Sol. I use Swissborg a lot and I always offer up staking. Any ideas on it? Nick, I don't. Sorry, Nick, I've only just got to answer your question. I use Swissborg. I don't think I stake on Swissborg. It used to be called CHSB, didn't it? It's now called Borg. But depending on how much you have of Ethereum, I'd have a look. If you've got 32 or 36, I think you can set up your own. But I I wouldn't necessarily use an exchange. I'd probably try and find somewhere. There's benefits and there isn't, because with an exchange you potentially can withdraw it a lot quicker, which obviously is beneficial. But for that benefit, you're not going to get the full APY that other people get. Prime example for that, because I've used it in the past, is Kraken with Polkadot. So if you stake on Polkadot, there's two options. You can have it locked up for 28 days and you'll get the full 18%. But if you lock it up with a 2-hour unlock, basically unlock it whenever you want, you only get 12%. So you can see how they sort of hold it back. So I've never really staked it. I've not looked into it, I'm afraid. But, you know, I was going to say, depending on where you're based, you know, places like Binance, if you're going to do it on exchange because you want quick and easy access to it, have a little bit of a look around. I don't know if the likes of Kraken do it. I would imagine the bigger ones, you know, they offer you a fantastic, I get 25% APR. When you look into the detail, you can only stake 1 sol or whatever. So unfortunately, it is just a bit of having a look around. I mean, you know, getting on any of the Discords and just sort of asking where people else are staking them is certainly going to help. But yeah, sorry, I think that's the best I can do for that one. Plan B released a video not long ago showing the stock flow showing 500k. Yeah, but I think Plan B's model is the extremes of how it goes, and it's going to happen much later on. I mean, at one stage it goes to 1 million, but I think that's after 2028. I mean, I think Bitcoin will get to 1 million. The point with that, though, is how much will the dollar inflated, and what would it really be worth? Our expert question: do you think CAS and TAO will still do their own thing even if the markets take a negative turn? I know CAS didn't really follow BTC previously, maybe as it was in price discovery. So yeah, I mean, it's a good enough time to start having a look at some charts. I do want to go back and do macro BTC, so I'll come back to that. As soon as you mentioned CAS, so excuse all the drawings and everything on it. It's on the daily at the moment. Hopefully you can see it, but let's just put it on the weekly. And like you say, you know, it has just gone up and up and up and up and up. Now, Bitcoin has as well, to a certain extent, but the drawdowns, the drawbacks that Bitcoin's had have not been as severe as they have with CAS. Now, CAS is a relatively new token, which certainly benefited, in my opinion. I know everyone is full bull on CAS in the group, from a very heavy positive run through YouTube and Twitter and everything else. And as it continued to defy Bitcoin, more and more people started to get on the bandwagon, started to, I don't want to say shill, because it's not a paid thing. They don't have that sort of stuff. But just get behind it. And it's done incredibly well. It really has. Could I see it doing its own thing? Of course. It's the one token, really, that has totally defied what Bitcoin has done. And so, absolutely, with the the narrative it's got in at the moment, then I do think it's going to be there. If you look at the introduction of the ASIC mining rigs, when they were coming in June and July, price was around about 3 or 4 cents. We're 3-4 times the price of that. Those people are going to be getting their ROI very quick. Now, I know the returns have dropped off drastically because they've flooded the market with the machines, but that's going to help. Now, my only worry always with CAS is at some stage the OGs are going to want to take some profit, or you'd like to think so. And there's potentially an awful lot that could flood onto the market. But right now, it's doing very well. And as I said earlier, I'm liking this consolidation period. I think, let's just, I'll just delete this. I mean, this at the moment is kind of looking like, of course it's white. I mean, just the color we needed to really make sure you guys could see it. This is looking, I'll just draw it this way, like a classic bull flag, really, in my opinion. Now, whether or not it gets all the way back up to 34k, I'm not suggesting it will, but it's certainly, it's shot up, it's consolidating, it's still respecting the 5 EMA, and there's no reason for it to necessarily fall away. Now, on the counter to that argument, I just go back enough times. Here we go. Oh, okay. We haven't hit the 50 EMA for best part of 7-8 weeks, and in its entire history on the daily. It does go on these stretches where it does that. I mean, this stretch here, it hit it there, I suppose. That's only 40 days. Let's assume that one wasn't it. 76 days. That was like a 10-week stretch. So, you know, it has done it before. But for me, and I'll explain this again with the Bitcoin analysis, the longer it stays away from these, the more chance when it corrects, and it will correct back to the 50 EMA. Whether the 50 EMA catches up with it because it consolidates for long enough, fair enough. But when it does, it will likely break through it. And I still think that's the case. I think we've had an incredibly powerful run. And this fib that we drew, I think still stands, you know, from the bottom there to when it consolidated around the 5 cents. But then if you look, bounced off this one quite nicely. It's come back up, it's consolidating here. But I still think these targets are valid. Now, previously I was saying a retest of around about here because at the time the EMA was down here or down here. But now, you know, 10 cents is a reasonable reassessment. If it was going to break through, then I think the bottom of this block, so maybe 8 cents might be an area that it goes towards. But yeah, whether or not it corrects with Bitcoin, I don't necessarily know, unfortunately. I wish I did. Tau again. Now, Tau looks a lot scarier to me. In less time, 6 weeks, it's flown. I mean, we've gone from 40 to 350, you know, 700% increase, which is mad. And again, this one has not had a pullback like Bitcoin. This one feels like it needs a big correction. And if it does correct, and I bought relatively late, guys, don't get me wrong. So I bought a little bit here. Then, you know, even to the 50, it's going to be sub 200. But, you know, as we say, when we hit the 50, we sometimes don't always catch it. And so, because it's still relatively new, we don't have a 200 yet. So maybe actually it's this area here, this previous price action. So that's like 130. And if it's worse than that, you're kind of taking in this bit down here. And then we're talking about 100. So that's what, it's a more of a risky play. Now, if you truly believe in Tau, you believe in the AI narrative, and you're in it for the long run and you're interested in doing the staking, then, you know, DCAing in, maybe not a bad thing. But if the market crashes and this does what Bitcoin does, and it goes, I mean, even a 20% correction, let's say Bitcoin does 20%, even if this does a 20%, actually 20% is not too bad. Down to 260, 250, kind of where I got in. If it does a 50% correction, there you go, it's down to about 163. So, yeah, it could look very messy, unfortunately. I mean, you throw the fibs on as well. I mean, 236 is at the bottom of this noise down here, and probably by the time it happened, 50 is going to get there. So that'd be an area potentially looking at. I don't know if you can long or short this token, to be honest. But yeah, if Coinbase sell OTC, they need to have the BTC. So where will they buy it from? Assuming it's a large quantity, when they buy it, might put the price up. Well, I mean, Coinbase is one of the biggest exchanges. They will have a reserve of OTC. Same with Kraken and same with Binance and everybody else that offers OTC. If they're the ones that are offering it, they'll have to have the reserves to do it. So they'll sell it from their reserves. Otherwise, there's no point offering OTC because they're not getting the benefit of it either. If they have to then go out and buy it, push the price up, they've already committed to a price there. They'll end up losing out. So they can only do it if they've got the reserves in place. Right. Okay. Let's just go back to Bitcoin. Okay. So I was up to date with the questions. So this is what I did I did it in October, did it in November. I've done it for a lot of the year, as you know, but I've updated it today. Thoughts of the 5th of December. And that thing we were looking at last week, that area, it's finally bust through it. And we've had 5 God green days in a row. I mean, they've been impressive. Each one, well, today's won't be, but each one bigger than the other. And this previous area of liquidity, I've left it on there, 40,700 to 41,700. Burst through that without any problem. So I have had a look at high block. I've updated everything with where it goes, and we'll have a quick look. But I mean, can you see it? How well can you see it? Let's see if I can zoom in. So it only goes down to 28. The big band at sort of 34,400 to 33, which is represented here. But if you have a look up here, because we've got here so quick, there's nothing. There is nothing here. So there's a little bit at 44,400, which we're kind of close to. I had it a little bit higher earlier. But yeah, there really isn't much. If we zoom out, and you can kind of see, so where it's purple, there's 0. We're getting a little bit of noise being built around 50. But yeah, there's a tiny bit of 45, but that's kind of it. So again, you know, going back to that, what do the market makers want to do? If they've been selling into all of this and placing their positions, they now want to drive the price down so they can capitalize on everyone that's long. And there's other. Have a look at the liquidation levels. I don't use it this often. Could be disastrous, but kind of have a look. Zoom in. So in terms of like short liquidations, there's 6,000 at 44. I'm trying to see what the number is. I don't know where the key is. I might have to come back to this. But you can kind of see. Look at this below. Look at how many building up down here, and these aren't all even 100x's. These aren't, you know, degenerate 100x's because of how far we've got above it. These are kind of safe 10, 25x, but there's just so much more to have a look down there. And you look at the delta, which kind of gives you the flow of whether we're in the, you know, is it a long heavy market or a short heavy market. Current delta levels, I assume that's not dollars. It's 1 million. That can't just be a million worth of dollars worth of longs. It must be a million BTC, maybe. I don't know. Someone that uses this more than me. I don't use this one as often. Yeah, let's see if I can. Just trying to see if I can. It says on the key. No, it doesn't. I will come back to you on what that value there is. But you can kind of see this is either red or green, and it is heavy green. It's just getting heavier and heavier. Oh, here we go. It does actually say when you hold over it. It did anyway. Didn't say what it is. 1.07. I'm assuming that's positions or BTC. But yeah, it just feels like there's so much for it to go at down here. But let's, we've talked about this correction for a while. How far could it go? Because as I said to you, ultimately, there is bullishness in the market. You know, whether it's right or wrong, people are getting excited, and there potentially is still legs to go. So where could some of these levels go to? I'm going to do it on a different chart just because that one's a bit messy. So let's just do it on this one. Let's just get into, okay. What am I on? Let's go weekly. So I want to have a look over to the left, see what levels we potentially have. Because that's all we've got to look at the moment, isn't it? I mean, for me, there's definitely something here. You know, if we look at sort of where it, dead cat bounced into prior to the, when was that? March 22. It was well before the lunar crash. Just its dead cat bounce. It wicked up to it on the way, and it had a bit of a breathe. There's weekly candles, remember, on the fall from the beginning of the year. And then likewise, in the rally up in April 21, and then in the summer, we can see that. So that 46 to 47.5K seems like a sensible level. But again, can it break that? I mean, it's broken previous levels without any problem. Psychological levels at 30, no problem. Psychological levels at 40, no issue whatsoever. So 44, it's got to. So could it get through those as well? We know there's no real demand in terms of short liquidation at the moment because they're all running to the hills. No one wants to place them. So we've got this area here as well, which is kind of just above that 50,000. And to be honest with you, I'm not ruling that out. You know, in terms of my view, I mean, let's close the poll. Let's have a look where things got to. But pretty much half of you assumed, 52%, that we were going to go to 50,000 first. And I don't think that's a stupid call or a moon boy call. I can see with not much resistance above us, with that bullish momentum driving through. Essentially, if next week is a good week for the markets in terms of risk assets, then yeah, I can see the narrative, the Santa rally taking us all the way through And we're only talking about 6,000. It's not that far. If you think in the last few weeks, we have demolished 18,000 in no time whatsoever. Then yeah, another 6,000 is not out of the realm of possibility. Take it to basically doubling our price, and I can certainly see that. Now, where's the absolute highest that it could possibly get to? And this is kind of Moon Boy, but just bear with me a second. Let's go back to this article here. I'll do it on my own chart, but this article here makes a bit of a claim that actually potentially we might see 60k before a correction. So no, let's look at that though. So what they're saying is in all of the previous rallies and midterms. So after the 2014 bear market, 2016 halvening, and up we went. What we found, was it on the monthly or the weekly? I can't remember now. It's probably just easier to do, easier for you guys to see. What we found was the pullbacks it had coincided with the tops of the previous bull markets. Similarly, where the candle closed, I know it spiked up. It was at 14k that candle, which was where it got up to before it pulled back down. And so the argument here is, could we actually see a run all the way up to 60,000 before we see that correction? Now, I know that feels pie in the sky, but actually, at the moment, there's nothing to say that we are going to turn. We know a turn is inevitable; it has to be. But with everything that we're experiencing, with the sort of the positivity in the market, with the FOMO that's being spread, with the greed that's just going to drive people to move prices much faster, then I don't think that is a super ridiculous amount. What I would say though is if we ever break that, if we ever break that, get up here, I think we do have to then question the 4-year model, because we'll be in uncharted territory. A pre-halvening price that's got above the previous all-time high. Are we then in that alternative cycle I've talked about for the last few weeks? Are we moving faster than we previously had? Yeah, I think we need to wait and have a look there. Now I know, that's one viewpoint, it's one metric, but the point I'm just trying to make is I certainly don't think that those levels. Did I delete them? Certainly don't think that those levels that I drew previously of sort of 47,000 and 51,000 are out of the world whatsoever. I can see momentum going up there. And then once you get to it, I mean, we broke through 40,000, we got to 44,000 pretty darn quick. So what's to say when we get to 50, we can't get higher? I know we could keep that narrative going for all the figures. But if we go back to this one, now this is one, if you've been watching these videos for a couple of years, you'll see I started this back here. And these levels have kind of played out, in terms of we just play in and around the area we're at. And, we bust through 37. It was such a strong level for us previously. No problem whatsoever. And 46.5, I mean, whether you want to call it 47 or not, it's going to be close enough, is a key level. And it just feels we're so close to that at the moment. I find that a hard narrative to turn around. And then you look at the other one we've always looked at, which is 59. That takes you to that thought process that actually we're going to get to the all-time high before we then retrace. Now, yeah, I'm not ruling them out. Now, we hopefully, most of us are in a position where we're majority in the market, so we can enjoy that. The question's going to be, when's the greed for us going to set in? When are we going to start taking profits? Because it's going to be a Bitcoin-led thing, this. So we don't know how much the alts are going to run. I know that I'm not really close, I don't think so, to a lot of my profit taken. So I'll look something like near. Oh, I need to go. So just bear with me. Profit levels. My first take profit for near is at $5.50. So as impressive as this little move has been, we're not really in a position where I'm going to take it. Whether or not we're going to get there, this one, I'm not so sure at the moment, because the dominance is a bit too high. But the point I'm trying to make with this is, are we going to capitalize on this and actually take some profit, Or are we going to treat this as a learning experience? It's fine if that's what you're going to do. So when we get to the full bull, we kind of start to get a feeling, a sixth sense of what it's like to be at the top, potentially a blow off top, but certainly a cycle top. And this one at 14 back in June of 2019 definitely was a cycle top. The euphoria around it. I mean, it's 5 straight months in a row of green. We've had 4 at the moment. Granted, December's only just started. But yeah, there's I think there's a lot to be positive for at the moment. If you're in the market, if you're not in the market, then obviously you're waiting for a pullback. I mean, I've still got 20% that I want to put in, but if I don't use it now, I'll find other things over the next few years, and I'll just be happy with where it currently sits. My Audi bag was always my third largest holding until the spike these last few days. Put it on top. Not sure if I should be rotating some of that out into Bitcoin. I mean, let's see if I can. Is there an BTC? Oh, there is down here. Here we go. I mean, one of the things you can have a look at, fairly new, is it is crushing it against BTC at the moment. So certainly, if you'd chosen to buy BTC at the beginning of November, you're going to get a lot more BTC than you did. But you know, it's early. So whether or not there's still more room to grow, I completely get you. That's really difficult with tokens that you know, are still in that price discovery phase. You know, when do you take it? How do you look at it? And I don't know. If it was me, I probably wouldn't yet. So that's just my opinion. I think things like this, I think there's still momentum. Wait for that narrative to potentially change. But even if you did, like, let's just say the market falls and Bitcoin falls and Audi falls, well, the move, if you were converting into Bitcoin, as long as they fall in similar fashions, this is just going to plateau. So you're still going to get your bang for your buck swapping it into Bitcoin. It's only if Audi falls a lot harder than Bitcoin that this will start to recover. So that's something that you could certainly have a look at. As you can see, I've got like all the BTC pairs that are on Bitcoin. Some of them need updating. They don't exist anymore. But yes, occasionally it's good. Worthwhile having a look around. Did it just suddenly massively pump up? Or is this chart just mad? It does say 45,000 there, doesn't it? I was like, what? Oh, I'm not getting a read from it. That's right. Phew. I almost panicked then. Okay, let's have a look at some others. Right, let's go profit. Oops, let's go portfolio. So Polkadot. I mean, Polkadot, that area. The last time I bought was down here at 3.6, and Polkadot had a great value. But I like Polkadot's price action because it's pulled back and it's now retesting this area. Now, of course, this could be a double top if it fails here. Don't get me wrong, but the fact that it's had that healthy pullback, unlike Bitcoin, and it's moving still quite strongly, I quite like that. It's still got a lot of traffic to get through, but you know, at the moment it's above the 5, above the 10, above the 50, above the 200. You know, it's looking good. I would get really excited if and when we can get past 680. I mean, a real ask would be to get past this level here around about 780, and then we can start to do it. But we're almost in a position where I'll move on to the 3 days so we can see it a little bit better. I suppose we have kind of changed the narrative. You know, we were making lower high and lower low. Now we have made that lower low, but this lower high, higher high, maybe the first one. This bit certainly is. We just haven't seen it finish yet. But I just want to see that continuing to go up. We're getting close to some vector candles. Now I've moved on to the 3 day, so the 200 is here at 780. I mean, I feel like that would be a good move to go up there. But again, which one am I on? My dots. My first take profit level's quite high up, so $22. And so as good as that move's been, and this is my largest bag, just about. I mean, it is probably that or Bitcoin. Then yeah, got a way to go for me. But I'm glad to see it's moving. It's had some pretty shit exposure with the OpenGov system at the moment, so it's good to see that actually the price action is driving it there. And you all know how I believe in the fundamentals of Polkadot 2.0. We talked a little bit about CAS. I mean, on the 3 day, sorry, this is the weekly. I was going to say not looking great. It's 5 days to go. We know cows can move, but again, yeah, it's consolidating. It's fighting that all-time high. So we know that is a level at the moment. It's just been pounding into that. Maybe if you've got some, you're looking to get in, maybe 12 cents, it could get back down there. I mean, 13, it seems to have really struggled to get below or stay below. So maybe if you're wanting to get a little bit in and you're not too bothered about the difference there, would be 13. But again, I like the fact it's consolidating. I can't fault it. Bifrost has again moved very strongly. It's wicky though, as you can see, so it's quite difficult, and I'm just holding it. I would actually like to buy some more. So if and when the market dumps, I think I'll use it to just buy altcoins. I'm going to go on the assumptions the altcoins are going to fall harder, and I'll be able to get in. Dynex. So Dynex is kind of forming some sort of compression here. So hopefully it has that move back out. I'm very much in the same position that Simon is in after sort of the article that I found. I'm happy with it at the moment. I'm not going to add to my position. It's not the world's biggest position. I got in probably a bit later than you guys, but you know, I've got my toe wet with it, and the first sign of trouble, I'll be out. But that's where it is. What is blowing my mind, sorry, CryptoBird again, what is blowing my mind is how close to BTC all-time highs we are, and how we still have maybe 23. Exactly, yeah. I mean, that is the point, isn't it? That we've come so high so quickly. But I'm going to go back to Bitcoin. That's what it felt like. I don't know, CryptoBird, if you were around, but that's what it felt like here. You know, we were 14K. I was on holiday with my wife and my in-laws. And I was looking at my phone so often, my in-law actually asked me if I was having an affair, because he was like, "You're checking your phone so much." And I was like, "No." That's when I first explained to him what Bitcoin was and why I was just so blown away with it. Because, you know, we were so close, and this was pre-halving, but this was a lot early. This was like nearly 10 months before the halving. We're now only 3-4 months or 4-5 months away from the halving. So that's the one thing of whether or not this cycle, and that's been the last couple of videos, so I won't go through it again, whether or not this cycle is going closer. But yeah, how close we are getting to all-time high compared to where we started the year. It's a nice feeling to be in. And if we do continue in the standard 4-year cycle, then that 100, 150,000, whatever it is that we think we're going to get to, it's going to feel great when we're up there. And that's the benefit. That's, you know, what we've been talking about for the last year, just getting in early. And sorry to, you know, go back onto sort of a more macro view of things, but whether you were like me that's been DCAing for a year, and there were times this year I looked like a hero, times where it really hurt me, or you've been able to sit on your hands and you've got in the last few months. Doesn't matter, because everyone's doing well at the moment, and whichever strategy you use which fits your lifestyle better, it's working right now. And that's the beauty of just being in as early as you want. You have the benefit of taking advantage of whichever strategy best suits you. You fast forward 12, 18 months and we're getting towards the end of a bull run, you're mad rushing to get into it, still thinking you get those gains. So, you know, pat ourselves on the back for having the balls and the gumption to go in early. Okay, Ethereum. So what am I on the weekly? Let's go on to the daily. So I might have to go on to the 3-day actually. Conscious how small this is. So we talked about last week, we were consolidating here, but we break that, and this is still the area I still think we're going to target. That previous price history, we've got it 21 and 22, so around about 2,500. And if Bitcoin's going to move up to that 50K, then I can easily see the 2,500 of Ethereum. Maybe a little bit higher, actually. I suppose. I mean, seems we're going to go on the weekly. Go on, let's just do this. Don't know how ugly this is going to look. Take it from lows to bottoms. Okay. So, I mean, if I respected this enough, I mean, if I did wick to wick, maybe it might do a little. It's very similar. Stick with body to body. That's what I prefer. That a 382 level is around about 2,500. That maybe that level up maybe gets to 2,800. Yeah, 27, 2,800 could be somewhere to look at for those. But right now, I'm just sticking with upwards at the moment. I think, you know, turning points will be these kind of areas. So for me, that would be what I'd be looking at. Glimmer finally got a bit of life in her. It's been a hard slog, but again, starting to move up. But like Dot, it's had some healthy pullbacks. Now we've almost, I think we've only got like a couple of unlocks left. January, I think it's the last unlock. So we're going to be in position where it's not 100% out, but the mass unlocks will have happened. So yeah, positive again to see where this thing can go. Everyone knows what I think of this project. I don't know, take profit on this one. I've deleted it because I'm in the take profit section and there's nothing there. I thought I had them all. Obviously, I've not. Anyway, we'll go back to portfolio. Link, I'm still not back in it. So this is just one where I either have to accept I'm just getting in a bad position, or I'm going to wait. And to be perfectly honest with you, this will all hinge on whether or not Bitcoin in the market's just correct. And wherever it corrects to, I'll make a decision if it's worth me getting back in. But just bear in mind, everyone, that I got out what I thought was a good price here. So I've got to correct a lot to get me back there. But I was playing that channel, as you know. I thought we'd come back down here. It didn't happen. But that's crypto for you. It's a project that I massively believe in. This one feeling a bit more Batman-esque, which is, you know, not one we've talked about for a while, but is potentially forming that second ear, or cat, I suppose. Maybe it could lead back down there. So that double top's looking, it's looking a bit more pronounced than some of the other ones. It's a bit messy, the neckline as to where it went. We went from the bottom around about 13, so potentially, or let's just say close below 13.3. I think that's probably confirmed, and then, you know, move back down. This clump here is 11, but I bet if I throw a fib up, tell you what, we're going to do it from there. We'll do it from here up to there. And then, yeah, that's 618 is at 1075. I mean, and the 5 is just pinching both of those perfectly. So that one feels like a fairly good level to be looking at there. In terms of an extension, I mean, the way it moved anyway, it could well be getting to $20. So it stings to think about it. NIR's had a nice bit of movement at the moment. It's not as good a pullbacks as DOT. We have seen some pullbacks. Why am I not on the market maker charts? So yeah, we have had some corrections back down into the 50s. So we've not been extended away for as long as we have on some of the other ones. But we're moving up. This on the 3-day, I should note, to sort of 260. That kind of previous price area there. I think really needs to break through that. I've kind of just realised I'm just rambling on. Is there any Tau? I'll do Tau. No, we've done Tau. Is there anything anyone wants me to potentially cover? Whilst you're deciding if you do, let's just have a look at the market cap, the overall market caps. So again, I mean, obviously it looks very similar to Bitcoin because it is majority Bitcoin, but it's still looking strong. We've had, these are weekly again, so what, 7-8 weeks climbing in a row. We've got a decent distance in the fans of the 5, the 10, the 50, and the 200 there. I would like to see it sort of pull back, and that might be the overall correction that we see. And, if it was from here, it's a 15% correction. Altcoins, I think, would take the majority of that hit. But I think it's still looking... actually, just now I look at this, one thing I would note is where we are at the moment. I know I should change the color. I'll zoom in. We've broken through that bit, so actually maybe we'll just here. There's definitely some areas here. If we put this down on the 3-day or the weekly, some of these wicks will probably fill out into where we are. But we're definitely going to run into a bit of noise, and we haven't had, since we broke that 1.3, we haven't really had anywhere because it was such a waterfall during Lunar Terror that we're now catching up to that. Total 3 is consolidating actually, which I think is better to see for me. So it's had a few weeks consolidating, and maybe it might get up to just under half a trillion. But again, a lot of noise around that area for it to have to get through. Not to mention the fact that we do need to take, not the arrow, do need to take out that high there. But again, you know, we've broken through the 5, the 10, the 50. Everything's crossing in the right way. So even a pullback doesn't necessarily scream that we're dumping, potentially just a healthy correction. Do you think that staking 87%-ish level will insulate Tau from a BTC drop? No, I don't. You know, Polkadot's at a high level. Everything's at a high level. And if Sam's right, because I've not looked into the staking side of things, but if you can unstake at a moment's notice, then yeah, people will just pull it and sell. So no, I don't necessarily think the staking protects it. You know, like it doesn't protect most things. It'll be the price that people, the 13% that people are trading, that will move that. Have a look at Rose. So Rose has been doing really, really well again. Another one we hold on the daily. So it had the large moves up. It has had some pulls back. It's not got really into the 50, but we are starting to see, again, it just tapering off, which again, if it can just sort of find support on the 10, just consolidate a bit and move up, it'd be another potentially healthy move. But let's see if some of these fibs line up. If it does, so maybe down to 7.2. If it got down to 7.2, I'd probably buy a little bit more, to be honest with you. You know, I do like Rose, and it is finally starting to wake up, a lot like some of the other ones have been doing. To the upside, I mean, it has kind of cleared. I mean, I know it's recovered, so you could say it hit 8.5 like this point here, and it's kind of rejected back down. So I need to move this onto the 3-day or something so I can zoom out and you guys can still see it. The next real big test is 10 cents. So, yeah. Okay, I think that's probably it, guys, to be honest. And girls, potentially. Do I think the market is super greedy? Yes. I mean, we're doing 43,900 at the moment. Do I think it means we're going to roll over tomorrow? Not necessarily. I just think the message for today is there are definitely some warning signs that we are in that euphoric kind of area at the moment. People are throwing out random numbers. We're just citing any kind of reference that we need to, and we're hanging on to, you know, key moments. And before those key moments have even happened, we're using it as a bullish narrative to take us forward. Of course, it's a speculative market, so of course that's going to happen. But all I'm trying to just explain is that we just need to be prepared to just shift that narrative if it moves. If you want to be that person that wants to take a bit of profit, wait for it to correct and come back, absolutely. But if you don't, you're just going to sit on your hands because you're deep in the green at the moment. That's absolutely fine. That's probably what I'm going to do with the majority of the stuff. And just, you know, remind yourself that any correction we have is a healthy correction. And you've seen the power that it can have. And so when we get months and months and months of this kind of power going, I truly expect it to be a, you know, an amazing experience. And, you know, we'll be, instead of checking your portfolio 15 times a day, it'll be 30 plus. But yeah, I'll have this video out for everyone tomorrow. You guys have already seen it, so it doesn't necessarily matter. Obviously, I'm in the chat and Discord if you've got any questions or anything like that. Trading Pub will be Thursday at 2 o'clock, as it always is. And other than that, just hope you enjoy the rest of your evening, and I will speak to you all soon. Cheers now.